New York City man convicted over gunsmithing hobby after judge says Second Amendment doesn't exist in this courtroom. Now, again, context matters, so I want to see the context in which he says it, right? Hopefully it goes into it in the article, but basically saying that the Constitution, the thing that's supposed to protect you from the state and their predatory courts, doesn't matter in the courtroom. That's a very nerve-wracking thing to hear, but then again, it is New York City. But let's go into it. Maybe we're misreading it. Maybe we are. But let's go into it and have a look. A Brooklyn man has been convicted of 13 weapons charges after having been arrested and charged in 2022 for building his own firearms, which I believe is his absolute right to do. He is allowed to he could build a fucking potato cannon for all I care, right? You know, it's your house, your property, your business, build whatever firearms you want. Dexter Taylor's ordeal could become a landmark Second Amendment case in light of the Bruin ruling handed down in the same year. The jury found Taylor guilty of second-degree criminal possession of a loaded weapon, 4 counts of third-degree criminal possession of a weapon, 5 counts of criminal possession of a firearm, second-degree criminal possession of 5 or more firearms, unlawful possession of pistol ammunition, violation of certificate of registration, prohibition on unfinished frames or receivers. So basically, yeah, if he gets convicted, he's going away for a very long time. 2 lesser charges, including third-degree criminal possession of 3 or more firearms and third-degree possession of a weapon, were not voted on. Taylor, a 52-year-old New York native and a software engineer, discovered the world of gunsmithing years ago. He decided to take it up as a hobby and possibly turn it into a business later. However, when a joint ATF-NYPD task force discovered he was legally buying parts from various companies, they opened up an investigation that led to a SWAT raid and arrest. He is currently being jailed on Rikers Island as he awaits sentencing. Taylor's conviction highlights the ongoing battle for gun rights. During an interview with Venu Varghese, Taylor's defense lawyer, he detailed how Taylor's trial proceeded and highlighted a distinct bias in favour of the prosecution. Is it your first time in a courtroom, aye? Varghese described how Taylor became fascinated by weapons science during the COVID-19 lockdowns, which inspired him to take up his gunsmithing hobby. He ended up building, I believe it was 8 pistols and 5 rifles, or 6 rifles, AR-style rifles, and then 8 or 9 Glock pistols that he built, Varghese said, and he's been doing this hobby for years and hasn't shot a single person, clearly a very dangerous man. In an interview prior to his conviction, Taylor told Red State, "I found out that you can actually legally buy a receiver and you can machine that receiver to completion, and you buy your parts and put them together and you've got a pistol or a rifle. And once I saw that I was hooked. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. This is the most cool thing you could possibly do in your machine shop." From the beginning of Taylor's trial, it was evident that the court would be biased against the defendant, according to Varghese, who explained that 2 judges presided over his case before the current official, Judge Abinadarke, took... That's a very unfortunate last name. Took over. The judge disrupted Varghese's opening statement multiple times as he tried to set the stage for Taylor's defense. Even further, she admonished the defense to refrain from mentioning the Second Amendment during the trial. But that's what the Constitution is for. That is what the Second Amendment is for. That's like turning up to the court and the judge going, "Don't you dare bring a lawyer. Don't you... Don't you dare bring a lawyer into this court." That's what it's for. That's what the Second Amendment's for. She told us, "Do not bring the Second Amendment into this courtroom. It doesn't exist here, so you can't argue Second Amendment. This is New York." Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that New York falls completely outside of the Constitution. I wasn't aware of that. I didn't know that the Constitution only applies to certain places. How convenient is that for the state? Varghese said he had filed the appropriate paperwork to preserve these arguments for appeal, but that the judge rejected these arguments and she went out of her way to limit me. So basically, they're like, that we tried to do the same thing in our appeal because the judge and prosecutor said so just some outright falsehoods, which there's evidence for, just complete fucking falsehoods. By the way, see the judge's like closing statement, there is like so many falsehoods in it, and that was grounds for our appeal, where the judge went, "This was the case," and we were like, "Actually, no, it wasn't. We have the evidence to prove that," and everything. And it didn't fucking matter anyway. However, everyone still to this day takes the judge's closing statements as gospel in our trial. I know, pain in the arse. But yeah, the fact that they went, yeah, see how the Constitution that's to prevent you from state overreach, the state violating your rights, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to make those arguments in the courtroom. Also, you're not allowed to make a note that I told you that and use it in your appeal. Like, that's it. Constitution, get out of New York. Get out of New York, man. Jesus Christ. See if you can just turn up to the courtroom and they're like, yeah, there's no Constitution. We can do whatever the hell we want. Get out, leave. Jesus Christ, that's a fascist state. That's a total totalitarian state if that's the case in New York. Jesus Christ, imagine getting pulled up for something like really, really minor and then the judge is like, what are rights? 5 billion years for jaywalking. Like, Jesus Christ. During the trial, the prosecution attempted to paint Taylor as a dangerous individual who was building dangerous firearms in his basement. In this vein, the prosecution objected to allowing Taylor's family in the courtroom to show support, nor did they allow his upstairs neighbour, who knew about Taylor's hobby, to testify on his behalf. Of course, the prosecution was able to bring forward every single witness that they ever wanted, of course, because we weren't allowed to do that either. Varghese described the prosecutor's opening statement. He opens up and he said that Mr. Taylor had a parade of horror. A parade of horror. Oh, I can't believe that the New York City police walk around with horror strapped to their sides. Oh, horror. They must be terrifying everyone. Shut up, prosecutor. Jesus Christ. Prosecutor. Okay, then tell you what, prosecutor, if it's horror, if guns are literally horror, as a prosecutor, you should be asking to get the NYPD completely disarmed. You can't have them walking around with horror in their holsters all over the city. So no doubt that prosecutor will be trying to do that. No doubt. He'll definitely be trying to disarm everyone, including the army. He was building this horrible place. I don't know, man, a room full of guns. Sounds wonderful. When they saw this horror, this is total prosecutor shit. This horror. He's basically seeding the judge's mind with this and seeding the jury's mind with it. That's what he's doing. If he keeps using that word over and over and over, then that word just becomes associated with the trial. Classic prosecutor tactic. Basically, it's like, you see that fucking mind games shit? Who's that fucking magic man that fucking plays mind tricks on people? I forget, but the little bald guy, he looks like a fucking bartender. He looks like a magician, actually. A magician who moonlights as a bartender, but I forget his name. The horror that he was making, the horrible place, when they saw this horror he was making under the nose of his neighbours, because all of those guns intended to hit their targets, basically implying that he was going to do some harm with these things. Jesus Christ, man, I hate prosecutors. They are like the worst people. When Varghese countered this narrative during his opening statement, the judge interrupted him again. There's no crime here, there's no allegation of violence, Varghese recounted, saying, I got up and said, you're going to learn that Dexter is who he is. You're going to learn that he never fired these guns. The judge interrupted again and asked the lawyers to come to her chambers for the second time. Varghese explained that he believed the only chance of having the case go in his client's favour was through jury nullification, which is very unfortunate that I guarantee you juries are going to go. I guarantee, like, see in the next few years, maybe the next 10 years, juries are going to go. Juries are going to be a thing of the past. Pesky juries, allowing justice to actually be carried out and letting people away for things that are their rights. I guarantee you juries are going to go. Which occurs when members of a jury believe a defendant violated a law but decided against prosecuting them because they disagree with the law itself or other reasons. Judge Darkey attempted to shut this argument down and led the jury to believe that they would face consequences if they did not vote to... You can't do that. You can't fucking do that to the jury. Vote guilty or you're all in trouble. Like, you cannot do that. In reality, this is not the case. Jury nullification is not illegal, according to Varghese, and that's completely true. Basically, courts do not want to let juries know that they can do that. Courts are terrified of that stuff. They are absolutely terrified of it, so it never gets brought up, and they always will threaten the jury, if you're planning to do that, you'll all be in trouble. It's the same thing as the police, where it's like, you need to hand over your ID or you'll be in big trouble. Bullshit. Absolute nonsense. That's not the case. Jury nullification is not illegal, according to Varghese. I actually argued that jury nullification is allowed because there is some law from the High Court of New York that talks about lawyers who made jury nullification arguments. And basically, they said that judges shouldn't encourage it, but they can't prevent it. I actually made a pitch directly to Judge Darkey to allow me to argue during nullification. She, of course, rejected that, which means that's not something she's allowed to do. This whole case stinks, man. Jesus. Why is she there? She's not a judge. She might as well be the prosecutor herself. He added, she basically said, you must vote guilty without saying you must vote guilty, which judges are not allowed to do. They are not allowed to do that. He characterised Judge Darkey as the most aggressive prosecutor in the room, and that's when, see at that point, if you've got the judge saying all that stuff, that's when it's, nah, different judge. Different judge. This person is not being fair. This person decided before they walked in the room that my client's guilty. That's where you ask for a different judge. That is mental. On April 16th, when it was almost time for the court to close for the day, the jury returned with a verdict. They found Taylor guilty of all but 2 counts. He was immediately taken into custody. The lawyer described what happened after the verdict was read. When the verdict was read, his mum started to cry in the back, and he said to me, "Venu, please comfort my mother." Jesus Christ. Varghese continued, saying Taylor also turned around to his mother after the jury was done. He said to his mum, "God bless you, mum." Fucking hell. Taylor is scheduled to be sentenced on May the 13th, and it appears Judge Darkey will likely make an example out of him, because I think it's amazing that judges can do that. Where it's like, yeah, what you did is worthy of a year, but I want to make an example of you for other people. I want to send a message out about what will happen to people if they do this crime. So I'm going to give you 10 years instead. Fuck you. My life is not yours to make so that you can send a message to people. Put out a fucking tweet, you cow. Right? Don't fucking take away 9 years of my life because you want to send a message. That's not what my life's for. Mete out the punishment you think that I deserve for what I apparently fucking did, but don't multiply it by fucking 10 because you want to send a message out there. Fuck you. And it still blows my mind that judges are allowed to do that. That is amazing that judges are allowed to do that. Likely make an example out of him to send a message to others who might consider building their own firearms in New York, according to Varghese. I mean, if it turns out the Constitution doesn't matter and the judge is a bigger prosecutor than the actual prosecutor, that's going to make people want to arm themselves. Everyone's going to go, fuck that, man. You know, see how that old phrase, better judged by 12 than carried by 6? Like, that's not the case anymore. It's actually just better to be I'm fucked anyways, so I might as well. Like, that's fucking terrible. He could be facing between 10 and 18 years in prison. However, the battle is far from over. Both Taylor and Varghese are committed to fighting this case to the end, even if it means taking it to the US Supreme Court. I know a guy who can help out. We have a shot at winning in federal court, the attorney said. I mean, Jesus, with all the stuff the judge said, I would be astounded if you didn't win. Taylor's family has set up a Give, Send, Go campaign to help with his legal fees. To learn more about Dexter Taylor's case, you can watch our interview with him below. And that's the end of the article. This is disgusting. I cannot believe the stuff that this judge is saying. Like, that was decided before she even entered the room. She's just basically telling the defense, shut up, the Constitution doesn't matter, you have no rights. And then the prosecutor's like, horror. Man, it's fucking this guy. Set up. Total set up. 100% absolute set up. You absolutely have a right to own and bear arms, right? You're allowed to make as many guns as you want, right? I'm not going to encourage it, right? Because I don't want to knock at the door again. However, I totally recognise your right to do it. And see, after I made the J-Start video, everybody was like posting their builds under the tweet. And I felt like the little boy who's too sick to go outside and play, watching everybody else with their builds and having fun. And I was just kind of like, this is bullshit. Why am I not allowed to own firearms? What am I supposed to do if I get home invaded? There are people that want to kill me. I've had 2 Osmonds through the door. Like, there are people out there that want to kill me, but what am I supposed to do? Barricade the door and then wait for the police to turn up in 3 hours? Like, long, I mean, the bodies will be cold by then. You know, me and my family. What the fuck am I supposed to do? Don't worry, I'm tooled up. Legally. Not with guns. Be much more effective. But anyway, yeah, this is a total setup. This guy's been set up. See how, like, with me, where my trial was, like, predetermined and pre-decided because they wanted to make an example out of me, but then they bottled out of it at the last second when they saw how much fucking furor my trial had stirred up, and they just gave me the little shitty 800 quid fine. They were planning on giving me the max sentence. That much I am absolutely certain of. That was the plan from the get-go, but that's the case that's happened here. This guy is being absolutely set up to get put away in prison for like 1,000,000,000,000 years to make everyone terrified of manufacturing firearms. That's what they're trying to do. And obviously they got that judge in to just come in like, fuck you, fuck justice, fuck the Constitution. What a horrendous thing for a judge to say. The trial should be a complete retrial with a completely different, unbiased judge, or take it straight to the Supreme Court and said, yeah, see how, like, justice, that thing that you're all about, this bitch said it's not allowed. Man, right, I really wish this guy the best of luck, and I'm going to be watching this. Just, I'm shocked. That's just absolutely fucking horrendous.